Hi all, I'm sorry I can't be in class today to present in person, so I'm going to have to present digitally. I will try to make it as engaging as possible. So, my reading is on Reflection in Business Ethics Insights from St. Ignatius's Spiritual Exercises by Dennis Morgan and Martin Calkins. Business environments tend to be incredibly transactional, which often leads to situations of manipulation and hostility. In order to prevent psychological and/or financial damage onto both oneself and others, business people can engage in self-reflection. Self-reflection helps one develop a better self-understanding and consequently enables one to be more conscientiously moral. More specifically, reflection can assist business people into clarifying their moods, expectations, theories of use, and defining moments. I will dive into more detail about these four categories later on. Obviously, the spiritual exercises were developed for religious believers. However, key elements can be extracted and applied to reflection as it relates to business. Those elements are imagination, role modeling, and the integration of reason with emotion. Reflection can certainly help one regulate negative moods. However, studies show that distraction is generally a better method for controlling anger and depression, and that rumination can actually make one's bad mood worse. People seem to show a tendency to change their minds about an object when they reflect on their initial positive feelings towards it. This is especially true for objects. This can include people. The article references dating situations that are unfamiliar. This effect could lead to poor decisions and decision regret. Expectations seem to be the most common use for reflection in business. Before an event, people usually create expectations about the event's outcome and how they are going to behave accordingly. That being said, reflection doesn't seem to work for everyone. It generally depends on their personality type. For example, strategic optimists, those that prefer some sort of psychological escape prior to a challenging task, tend to perform better without reflection, while defensive pessimists, those that prefer to ruminate on their impending performance and think about negative outcomes, tend to perform better with reflection. What are theories of use? They are conceptions about what approaches work well in a particular work context, an explanation about why they work well, and contingencies that alter these approaches. Generally, they are cognitive maps by which people design action. They are beneficial because critical self analysis often promises tremendous returns, personal and beyond. Moreover, they enable workers to identify why certain office practices or norms are not working for them and figure out possible alternatives. The only negative to using reflection for theories of use is that it might cause internal tension as one's personal practices may not align with the office's practices. Defining moments help people determine who they are. They do not occur during instances of right versus wrong, but rather when a decision maker perceives a conflict between doing right by the organization they are working for and doing right by some other value system like their religion. Such situations are defining because they often force individuals to choose their character over an institution. One becomes virtuous by choosing their character in similar situations over and over again. The only downside is many workers cannot take extensive time when asked to make a decision on demand. Moreover, a lot of workers do not know how not to act on impulse in the heat of a decision making moment. If one chooses to engage in Ignatian influenced reflection for the purposes of business, here are some key ingredients to a positive experience. One, a willingness to let go of one's ego and professional esteem. Two, having a space to be in solitude and retreat from others if you feel like you can escape and front of others, I guess that component is not necessary. Three, an understanding that trusting one's emotions is often better than trusting one's rational thinking. This is something praised by St. Ignatius over and over again. And lastly, having a great guide who can help the reflector direct his or her interior motives appropriately. So, in reflection, it's important that we develop the tools to reflect before we go out on our own. So, often it's easier to remain focused when we have someone guiding our thoughts. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to wander. Hey, you guys made it to the end of my presentation. I just want to leave you guys with some questions. So, one, should a course in reflection be compulsory for all business students? Why or why not? I also think we can go a step further and ask, should reflection or some form of meditation be mandatory for all business institutions? Two, is it better for one to go with their gut decision or a decision made after deep reflection? Why? This is something that kind of troubles me about Ignatius's spiritual exercises. He always says, go with your emotion, but how can you go with your emotion and drive away from rational thinking if you're like reflecting and meta thinking? And lastly, do you think you would benefit from Ignatian influenced reflection in the professional world? Why or why not? Mind the different personality types we talked about in this presentation. So, thank you guys. Bye.